Hey everybody, it is a beautiful day in South Dakota, and by beautiful, I don't mean that the sun is shining, because it clearly is not. No, it is a beautiful day in South Dakota because the wind has finally stopped blowing. The dirt has finally stopped circulating around in the sky. My house, I've lost most of the shingles on my house, half of the trim on the house. It has been just crazy windy here and awfully cold, but today is a gorgeous day because the wind has settled. We've gotten a nice drizzle of rain, and the grass is going to soon start greening up if we can get a little sunshine, and I'm just really appreciative of this day in South Dakota. I just got done recording a really awesome segment for the Radke Report and for Rural Route Radio with Trent Luce. And my guest today was Annaliese Wegner of the Mod Farm Chick. You can follow her on all social media channels. She is absolutely amazing and an incredible voice and advocate. I spent a full hour with her, and that's what I'm going to post here on YouTube for you guys to check out and listen to. But I have to say, and I didn't get to say this in the recording, Mod Farm Chick, we really need Tuesdays with Tom to come back in full force. We need more Tom. Her husband Tom is absolutely hilarious and is an awesome addition to them sharing their story on their family's dairy farm. So I'm just going to put that little request in that we want to see more Tom. So with that, here is my episode with Annaliese Wegner. This is the Radke Report. I'm Amanda Radke, and I'm on a mission to teach people about where their food comes from and to celebrate the men and women in rural America who provide us with the essentials of life: food, fiber, and energy. Have a great day. I'm very excited today to be joined by a friend of mine who I hope we get to meet in person one day. But welcome, Annaliese Wegner, the Mod Farm Chick. You are just someone I've really admired for a long time, so I'm excited to sit down with you and visit today.
Oh my gosh, the feeling is mutual. I love, following you as well. And yeah, I hope we get to meet in person.
No, I know. I actually don't go to a lot of dairy meetings. I did speak at one dairy co-op meeting earlier this year in Minnesota. And I mean, they're like my people. Like you guys, if you have cows, you just get it. So,
right.
Yeah. So just to start, can you tell me a little bit about yourself, where you guys live, what you do, your family, the farm?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm Annaliese Wegner. I farm with my husband, our two children, and then my husband's parents near the La Crosse, Wisconsin area. So we're dairy farmers. We milk about 700 cows 3 times a day. Tom and I both grew up on the dairy farm. He's the 2nd generation on his farm. I'm the 5th generation on my farm. Yeah.
Well, and if people could see your place, like, it's gorgeous. You have these beautiful big barns, and the flag and the cattle look amazing. Like, I love seeing your family and your story. What kind of inspired you to start sharing about your farm? Because anyone who knows, who's ever shared their story online, they know they get a lot of haters. And I know you've had your fair share of that as well.
Yeah. So I always knew that sharing my farm story was important. I knew that consumers are growing farther and farther away from the farm and have little to no idea who their farmer is or where their food comes from. And while I knew this was important, I thought, we've got other people doing it. I don't need to do it. Who's going to listen to me? But from time to time, I would share different blog posts from other farmers with my maternal grandparents who aren't as connected to agriculture. And it was a particular blog post about animal abuse, and it really resonated with my grandma. And she immediately called me and began telling me how well written it was, how informative it was. She had thought I had written it, and I corrected her and told her another farmer wrote it. But that's kind of what got me thinking, well, I could do this. I could blog at least as a way to connect with my grandparents and show them what we do on a regular basis. So this was, I don't even remember how many years ago now. I got started on WordPress.com and just started sharing our everyday farm life. And it took off to me being on Facebook, Instagram. I was on Snapchat for a little bit. trying to figure out this TikTok and YouTube world. So it just kind of snowballed from that.
Yeah, that story reminds me of when I was dating Tyler and I first visited their farm. They grew up on a dairy. And so his sweet little grandma who milked cows, twice a day, all of her life. And I thought she understood what was going on, in the outside world with external threats, animal rights activists and all of that jazz. And I walked into their farmhouse and she had a pair of gloves that were given to her by the Humane Society of the United States. And I go to my husband or my boyfriend at the time. I was like, what's up with grandma here? And he was like, she got conned into donating because of those commercials. And, she's got this heart for animals. So that was like an aha moment for me because it's, oh man, even in our own families, even if they grew up in agriculture, have always been a part of it, or have relatives that are engaged, maybe they don't necessarily understand. And so, yeah, it's like, okay, we have to state the obvious sometimes. And I don't know, for you, do you feel it's a lot of sharing basics? I mean, what resonates the most with your viewers?
Yeah, 100%. It's the basic stuff. Because when I first started, I was sharing the basic stuff. I'm like, this is boring. Everybody knows this.
Right.
And even my, rural friends and family, they didn't know these things. So it really was eye-opening that it's just, back to the basic stuff that farmers do every day in and out to care for their animals and land is the stuff people need to see and hear.
Yeah. And you do it with a way, you're humorous. So you're funny and you're fun. Like people want to come and hang out with you, I think, each day watching your stories, and you've got your little ones tagging along and you're feeding the calves and it's fun. You invite people into your day. Does it ever get hard to do that?
It does. I think we all have days where we're feeling more creative or more positive. Everybody has bad days, so it can be tough on those bad days, or they're days you just feel like, I don't want to do this. But for the most part, I really do enjoy it. I like connecting with people. I like showcasing our farm life, and the kids definitely, they bring a new element to it. They're the funny ones.
Oh, right. Yeah, they're hilarious. Well, it's like too many yous. Like it's you and your husband, like repeated, like these little stamped clones, and they're adorable. And yeah, it's like weird. I feel like I know your family, even though we've never met. And you probably feel the same way, where you're like, oh yeah, I know that person because they share their life. With some producers, I know the feeling or the comment I get is, but we have the check off for that. And I don't make money sharing my story. I have too many things to do. Do you see, just from a practical standpoint, that there's profit coming back to you, or it's a economic benefits to going on Instagram and Facebook every day and just showing up and telling your story? Or are you playing more of a long man's game here?
I would say a little bit of both. In the short term, I feel like it is so important for every farmer to share their story, because even if we can just help one person understand what we do or where their food comes from, it makes such a difference. Not even just from like the grocery store or shopping habits that consumers play a role in, but like we have people in our communities who don't know a lot about farming, who are then voting on, different town boards, and their decisions and their vote, what they're voting on affects farmers directly. So if they don't understand what it is we do, then they're not going to be voting for us to keep farming in the way that we need to,
Right. I always say, because people think, oh, this farmer, this rancher just wants to stay in business. They're just greedy, they're whatever. But I always say we care about the exact same things. We want safe and affordable food that's nutritious. And so we're all on the same team here, but there's a lot of voices everywhere that are telling people you can improve animal welfare by voting for this ballot initiative, and you can save the planet by cutting meat or dairy, and you can do all these things. So the noise is loud out there. And it takes a lot of us just stepping ourselves into that, platform, into those platforms and into those spaces where you kind of open yourself up for criticism. But if we're not there, who is telling our story? And that's what's really scary.
100%. Yeah. We all need to put a face to farming. It needs to be all of our faces. And I think a little can really go a long way. I think a lot of people get scared to share their story because they think they need to be an influencer and they need to do it 24/7. I would say people like you and I are maybe like the exception to the rule, but if everybody just did a little bit, even if it's not on social media, just getting involved in your community, and letting people know that you're the farmer in town.
Right, right.
That counts too.
Yeah. And I always say, we're not going to change people's mind with just the, we're going to educate. We have to educate. To me, we have to change their hearts first, because people are emotionally driven. And once they can see our hearts. So if you're the farmer in town and you're serving ice cream at the baseball diamond during the summer tournament, they're going to remember that they met this really cool farmer who also provided this experience for kids. Or, there's ways I think we can think outside the box where it teaches people, like, we are people too, and we're families in this community, and we're not just a business or just a farm. We're more than that. We're just like them too.
Yes, absolutely.
That wasn't even a question. That was just me on a soapbox. But with 30 seconds before the break, can you just tell us quickly how we can follow you, where people can find you at?
Sure. So I am Modern Day Farm Chick on Facebook, and then Instagram is Mod Farm Chick.
Okay. I think why I wanted to reach out to you is because you're kind of one of those movers and shakers that makes things happen. And I see, you're an entrepreneur and you're using these platforms, not just to talk about the dairy industry, but also to run a business. And can you kind of tell what your business is, how you've kind of married the two? Because it is an interesting dynamic, but somehow you make it all work perfectly.
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, in addition to being a mom and a farmer, I also sling skincare for Rodan and Fields. I started this shortly after I gave birth to the twins, and I found myself as making a transition from full-time farmer to part-time farmer, full-time butt wiper. And even though my husband assured me that keeping the little people alive was an important job, it just didn't feel that way to me. Like, I wanted something more that allowed me to talk to people, to adults, and contribute to our household. So I started selling skincare, and really it was just something for me in the beginning. But the cool thing that happened was I had a whole new audience now. I think a lot of us as advocates are always trying to figure out, how do we reach the people that actually need to hear that message? Because so many of us just have fellow farm friends. So by selling skincare, suddenly I had all of these new women who are from all over the country, Australia, Canada, and a lot of them have never met a farmer before. So it's been really cool to have them start following me so I can share my farm life. And then now I have this knowledge about skincare, and I can help my farm moms feel good in their skin. So yeah, it's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, I always tell people that their other interests outside of agriculture are what makes them the most valuable advocates, because they're reaching out outside of our choir and our echo chamber. And I found that with foster care. I never would have imagined that I'd be during the pandemic. I had a birth mom of a kid that we were taking care of, and she was ready to throw away all of her meat because, in the news, it was, COVID is on the surface of meats. And so I got to talk to her about cooking temperatures and using a meat thermometer, and that, bacteria or whatever is killed with heat. And I was like, oh, wow, this is crazy. Or social workers asking about, how could I buy beef in bulk, or, just walking them through that. And I struggled for a while about how can I marry these two passions that I have. And what I realized with that was it all comes down to food. And, a lot of these kids that we were taking care of had seen food insecurity in their lives. And that was my aha moment. Like, well, I like food and I produce food. And so let's talk about food insecurity and also do this other thing. And so that's how I see you're doing too, because it's like so many women want to look good and feel good in their own skin. And we're all stressed and overworked and tired, and you have a solution. But then, hey, while you're here, let's talk about dairy and how that can also help you glow from the inside out. And so it's very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
What has been maybe the biggest misconception that you've had to kind of tackle over the years?
I think in the dairy world, it's probably the whole why do you separate the calf from the cow thing.
Yeah.
That's always a hot, touchy subject, especially when you're talking to people who like love animals and are maybe comparing animals to people. So it just doesn't make sense to them.
Right.
But yeah, that's always a tough one. I try not to talk about it a lot, but a little because it needs to be talked about.
So with the listeners of Rural Route, I mean, a lot of them would understand and appreciate agriculture, but there's going to be a lot of listeners that don't come from a farmer ranch background. What would you say to that one? Because I think this is a great opportunity to just kind of clear the air on that.
The reason dairy farmers separate the calf from the cow is for the best interest of the cow and the calf. Dairy calves are born with very delicate immune systems. They're not hardy like a beef calf. They really need extra TLC. So we move them into their own calf hutch or space in a barn. So for the first few weeks of their life, they aren't exposed to like adult manure or other illnesses that the rest of the herd can carry. And then it also allows us to give the mom that care too, right? Like when a cow gives birth, she's not the best mom. She just wants to like eat and relax and do cow things. That's all cows want to do. So she goes and gets that attention. She gets moved into our hospital barn where we keep an eye on her for at least 12 days until we know she's healthy. She can go back with the rest of the herd. And it also makes it a heck of a lot easier to milk that cow. Like if we had cows and calves running around in the barn together, it would be a mess. Calves would be getting stepped on. Everybody would be dirty. So it just really keeps the cow and the calf healthy.
Yeah. Do you have a lot of people that equate then those baby calves they see on your Instagram stories as like pets? Or I guess, how do you kind of navigate through that and explain that difference?
I don't think, not too many people, I think, consider them as pets. But I do like to showcase like these are herd animals. It's not a dog. They're unpredictable. Yes, you can like have your pets at the farm, the animals, that you can go out, scratch, sit on, who knows. But at the end of the day, they are still unpredictable animals. And you have to treat them that way.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so do your kids get involved in that end? Because you do show that a lot, making the milk and going from hutch to hutch and feeding the calves. And it is cool to see. But are your kids, I guess, at what age do they start stepping into those roles? And I always say one day my kids are going to be helpful and not.
I think we're getting closer to that point.
Yeah.
They've been doing chores with me since, before they could walk. And we're finally getting to a time where they are a little more helpful than annoying. So they do like to feed calves. It takes way longer with them than it would without them, but that's part of the farm life. You want them to grow up doing that and learning and understanding hard work.
Yeah. And that's what I always say or think about, I could get everything done so much faster if the kids weren't in tow, but that's not the point, and when we slow down and are able to do it alongside them, we can teach them our values too, and kind of show that next generation what we're trying to accomplish here. And at the end of the day, they tend to understand the circle of life and nature and their food so much faster and so much more fully than most grown adults. And
yes,
it's amazing to see.
I have to tell you a funny story. So we're pretty, transparent with our kids about where meat comes from, where milk comes from. And we've told them that the dairy cow not only can make milk for dairy products, but they can produce meat as well. And we kind of thought they understood that the cow had to die and that's how you get the meat. But the other day, Lane goes to me, "But Mom, how do you get the meat out of their udders?"
Oh,
I guess we need to work on this one a little bit more.
Spoken like a true dairy kid right there.
Yeah.
Well, after Easter Mass, we're talking to the priests and we're like, you guys can come out for steaks, after the big Lent season's over. Now you have some time to hang out. And they're like, oh, can we help on the farm? What can we do? And I'm picturing like how do I put these priests to work? I don't know what to do with them. Like, I don't know. But yeah, Scarlett said, well, we just want to cook you a good steak. And the priest goes, well, I feel sad because aren't those cows your friends? And Scarlett's like, well, yeah, but we still eat them. You know, and I'm like, I don't know if this is good or bad, that she's just like, whatever. But at the end of the day, we always try to drive home that we're ultimately trying to help people and nourish people. And these cows can do so much that, you know, and it's all about honoring their life and making sure they're healthy and thriving while we have them. And then respectfully harvesting them to provide for humanity. And so it's a good calling, but it's a hard concept to teach people, because I feel like no matter how you spin it, they're still like, no, that's terrible. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and you mentioned one thing, we have just 30 seconds, but talk to me about cow things, because you had a really cute Instagram reel where you just showed cow things. So what are doing cow things? Because I love that phrase.
Cow things, again, cows are lazy. So what does a cow want to do? She wants to lay down. She wants to chew her cud. She wants to be nice and cool, mosey around her pen, eat, drink, just lay around. I think that's what we all want to do, really.
Yeah, right. They've got the brushes and they're relaxing and they're in their beds. Yeah, it's a cool thing. Yeah. I like that phrase. It should be on a t-shirt or something. I don't know.
Oh, let me write that down.
Yeah, right. Well, we'll be right back after this short break. I'm Amanda Radke. It is grilling season around here. We've got some steaks on the grill, and I'm using my all-time favorite seasoning, the All-American Beef Battalion's Superior Steak Seasoning, created by the one and only John Ford. Every time you buy one of these steak seasonings, you can support the All-American Beef Battalion. Now, if you've been following me long enough, you know I'm a huge supporter of the battalion. It was started by my dear friend and bonus grandpa, the late Bill Brody, who is a Vietnam veteran, came home from the war to protesters and vowed to make sure that the troops serving our country today never felt that way. And so in 2007, he started the battalion as a way for this Kansas cowboy to say thank you to the troops. And since that he got started, they've served over 400,000 ribeyes to the military men and women. You too can try this steak seasoning and support the All-American Beef Battalion when you head to steaksfortroops.com. Thank you to our men and women who keep us free. Sitting with Annaliese Wegner, the mod farm chick who hilariously, accurately, and every single day shows up to tell her audiences about where their dairy comes from. I see you're very busy. I was checking out your social media last night, and you are on the speaker circuit. Can you tell me where you're headed, or where can people listen to you speak?
Yeah, I'm dabbling in the speaking, and maybe this will be a good way to get my toes wet. But in May, I'm just going to be speaking at our local FFA banquet, and just going to be talking about the importance of advocating and hopefully encourage these fellow FFAers to tell their farm story. And then in June, I am headed to the Connect Summit in Nashville, Tennessee, where I'll be on a panel with some fellow advocates, and we're just going to be talking about advocacy. So I'm really excited for the Nashville trip.
Yeah, I mean, Nashville's a good time anytime you can go, but you're like surrounded by the who's who in the dairy industry. So who is all on the panel with you? Because it's all these awesome dairy producers and voices.
Yeah, so it'll be the New Mexico Milkmaid, Calf Vet, the New York Farm Girls, and then I'm going to screw up his handle. I think it's the Iowa dairy farmer or the Illinois dairy farmer.
Iowa. Yeah. He's not afraid to go after the activists, right? That guy.
Yeah.
He's awesome. I'll provide that in the comments if you guys are watching this on YouTube, but awesome crowd of people. And I guess, what do you think, there's so many different voices, but you're all so unique in a way. And that's what I always tell people is, I see advocates sometimes will say, you have to do it this exact way or you're not doing it right. And I always tell people, you just be you, and you're going to attract exactly who you want to attract. You're going to attract your tribe. So what I talk about maybe totally repels some people, but it's going to bring in a whole flock of different people. And so everyone has just like their unique voice. And I guess, what advice would you give to someone that was just getting started and thought, they have no idea how to create content. They feel self-conscious that people are judging them or thinking, what they're doing is dumb. I guess, what advice would you have?
I mean, just get started. You're going to feel so dumb in the beginning. So dumb.
Yep,
I remember
yep.
when Instagram stories just first came out and I had to listen to the sound of my own voice. And I was like, good God, no, thank
Yep,
you.
right.
But now it's like second nature, right?
Yep.
So just get started. Be yourself. Like you said, talk like you're talking to a friend, and know that you don't need to be an expert in everything. Just share what you know. If you ever get a question or a comment that you don't know the answer to, just help point those people in the right direction, right? Like
Yep.
you don't have to be perfect. You just have to
Right.
do it.
Yep, I agree. And I would say it is also helpful. I always tell people, if you really don't feel like you can talk and share your story, just share those of the people who are doing it, because it just helps so much. The algorithms are always burying good content, I think. And it's really hard to kind of get content out there. But I totally know what you mean about feeling stupid. I still do that. My husband will watch my stories at the end of the day and I'll be like, oh dear, no, like I cannot hear my own voice, like shut that off. Or, starting this YouTube channel, Amanda Radke, go check it out, everybody. But I'm like, cool. It took me so long to put this video together and 3 people watched it. What's the point? And that is the thing. Everybody starts at 0. And so I remember when I started blogging 14 years ago, and I was like, cool, the only one that's going to read this is my mom. Like, this is such a waste of my time. But if you just keep showing up, people know that they can count on you, and they want to be a part of your day and your conversations. And yeah, it offers great opportunities. What advice would you have for dealing with the trolls and the activists and the crazy people?
My advice there is don't deal with it. I know when I had my first vegan activist attack, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to comment back. You get fired up, your blood is boiling, you think you need to do something about it. But honestly, the best thing to do is just let it ride out. Those people are not your audience. They don't care what you have to say. You're not going to change their opinion. Yeah. I choose to focus my time on people who actually consume dairy products and want to learn about where those products come from. The vegan activists are not those people. So let them blow up your page. It's probably going to get you more followers anyways.
Yep. They're just helping you in the algorithm.
Yep. It never lasts long. It'll go away.
And I think it's fair to say, I mean, do they bother you sometimes? Because they have in the past, like where the comments get so heated that, or they're a threat to your family, or you just feel like there's something that just hits you just right. And, your blood's boiling, or you feel sick to your stomach. Like, I think that's perfectly normal, because everybody wants to be liked. No one wants to be hated or attacked or feel like they have to defend themselves. But I think that's perfect advice. Just use it to your advantage, let it be fuel for your fire, and focus on the people that just want to learn about what you do. And but it's okay. I always tell people too, it's okay to have boundaries, because we don't want people in agriculture to be struggling or have it be impacting their personal lives, or it's okay to take breaks once in a while, or all that. So do you take breaks on that note? Do you step away sometimes?
I would say I consider it a break, but it's probably not a break.
Yeah, right. I know. Like, oh, I took a day. Like,
yes, exactly. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, what fuels you to keep showing up? I mean, is it just habit at this point?
It's habit. I enjoy it. I really enjoy Instagram. I think it's a space for me to be creative. It's a space for me to connect with others, because I live out in the boonies. I don't get to see my friends a lot. There's a lot of good things about it. I think Instagram or social media in general can be a very positive space if you use it correctly, if you're following people who bring you joy, and you're not just constantly comparing yourself to someone else or that sort of thing.
Right. No, totally agree. And I just think that community you can build is so rich and valuable. And even more so with COVID, when COVID hit and you weren't going out and about, it's like, oh, I still have these people that can relate, and they're going through the same things, and we can talk online, even if we can't be together. What would be, I guess, if you could tell people something about the dairy industry that's just really misunderstood, what would that be?
I think the biggest thing I want people to know is that dairy farmers are people just like you. Yeah. They care. they want the same things. I mean, I think that's probably for farmers in general. We care about our land, our community, our animals. We know that we can't have food for the future or a prosperous business in the future if we don't do things correctly right now. So are there bad apples out there? Absolutely. There are in every industry, but that is not the normal. Most farmers are good people just like you who care and are doing their best.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just thinking of I guess what's been like the most successful thing for you to reach your audience? Is it reels? Is it posts? Do you feel like you can reach more people on Facebook or Instagram, or kind of what's been the success thing for you?
I would say Instagram. I just feel like there's more community there. There's more engagement. There's more conversation. I actually have more Facebook followers, but the engagement just isn't there. I feel like the people on Instagram are way cooler.
I feel that too. And like people are kind of mean on Facebook, I think sometimes.
Yes.
I don't know what it is, but that's how I think about Twitter too. Like everybody's angry on Twitter. I don't want to feel that way when I'm on there.
No, thank you.
Yeah. And you do have a ton of followers on Facebook. I checked that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have a mass following. So what are some challenges facing dairy producers right now?
I feel like we're always facing challenges. Probably right now is obviously, fuel prices, feed prices, all the inputs. And we are seeing a little bit higher of a milk price, but again, everything we need to make that milk is now more money too. So it's always tough. It goes ups and downs, but I've always said, farming isn't just a business. It's our lifestyle. It's ingrained in us. It's what we love to do. So no matter what happens, like we're not going to quit. We just keep plugging along.
Just battle through it. See, I kind of get to be more doomsday where I'm like, it's going to get bad. Or I saw someone on Twitter was like, oh, I just sold $8 corn. And we don't raise crops. We buy our feeds. And I'm like, oh no, that's going to be so bad for the livestock guys. I'm like crying a little bit, but you weather through it, you figure it out. And I will say, I paid $5.09 for a jug of milk here the other day. And I was like, oh, it kind of took me aback, but I hope some of that is trickling back to you.
Yeah.
Is it? I guess with that.
Yes.
That's something. Okay. Good. Yeah. And so do you tell us about where you sell your milk? Is it a co-op? How does that work?
Yeah, so we sell our milk with DFA, Dairy Farmers of America, and then that we sell it through DFA, and then it goes to Kemp's either in Rochester or the Twin Cities, which is a creamery local to us, where it's bottled for fluid milk.
Okay, and that's the brand we buy. So thank
you.
And I guess are you seeing more dairy producers exit the business, or are people getting bigger to survive? Are they going to value added things? I guess, how are people weathering, the tough times?
Yeah, you're seeing the smaller farms kind of sell out, dwindle out. Now with the milk price being higher, a lot of people are like getting back into it or growing their herd, or they're like, finally, we have a little money, we could do something with it.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people are trying to grow to stay at it.
Kind of withstand what's coming. Yeah. Well, we'll be back after this short break. I want to talk in the final segment of Rural Route about some challenges I see in the food system and maybe get your perspective on that. And then, as always, talk about solutions and how we can ensure everybody has access to safe, affordable, and nutritious dairy products, and that we have a consistent supply on the shelves when people need it. So I'm Amanda Radke. We'll be right back after this short break. Earlier, I had mentioned that I had spoken at a dairy co-op meeting, and one of the concerns that they had, and I'd just like to know if this was an issue you're seeing, is with COVID and supply chain disruptions, one of the challenges is the plastics and the bottling of the milk. Are you seeing that as a thing, or is that not really come up where you are?
I think it was definitely a thing when COVID first came out. I know, as many of us probably remember, when COVID first came out, the grocery store, the milk aisle, like, it was hard to find a gallon of milk, and it was super frustrating, especially for me as a farmer, because I know we have the supply, right? But it wasn't getting to the people, and it was all because, you know, certain milk was being bottled for schools or for restaurants, and now that all needed to get bottled for just the grocery store so people could get it. So there was a little bit of an issue for a while there, but now I think it's pretty well straightened out.
Okay. Did you have to dump milk for a while?
We didn't. We were close.
Okay.
DFA had a list, and there were some other farmers that worked with DFA that did have to dump their milk. Luckily, we were not one of them.
Okay. So I just want people to understand the impacts of having to dump milk on a family dairy farm. What does that look like if a producer simply has to, you know, get rid of their product? How devastating is that?
I mean, that it's everything you've worked for, you know, it's your paycheck, it's your livelihood, it affects the business. So to have to just dump that milk and get nothing for it, it's insane.
Yeah. So what was the mental health in the dairy community like at that time when products couldn't get delivered?
I think everybody was angry, depressed, frustrated, wondering why this couldn't be, fixed. It was so frustrating to know you have this major supply of milk and people can't get the product that they want and that they need.
Yeah. We're starting to see, I don't know if your grocery stores are kind of sparse these days, but we're starting to see some of that again. And like I said, I talk about food insecurity and making sure that we have access at all times. And we saw the toilet paper shortages and the major hoarding and people panic buying. And I was talking to my husband about this earlier this year, and he's like, Amanda, this is not as big of a thing as you think it is. And we happened to stop at the grocery store, needed to pick up a jug of milk, and there was no milk. There wasn't even a thing of half and half. And this was the Walmart in Mitchell. And my husband, who grew up on a dairy, like, he's freaking out. He's like yelling in the store. He's like, what do you mean there's no milk? How can there not be milk? Like, there's always milk. And I'm like, oh, calm down. But also, I kind of told you, that this is happening.
Yeah.
But I guess, and I don't know what the exact reasoning would be, but do you anticipate anything like that becoming more widespread? Or are you seeing any shortages of products in your grocery store where you are?
I have been seeing, some fewer, emptier shelves in the grocery store. I wouldn't say I'm seeing anything in the dairy case.
Okay.
I wouldn't expect anything in the dairy case to be changing. As far as we have, everything is sorted out now. Things are being bottled and packaged and delivered where they need to be. So
stay calm and carry on, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So one thing that I work in the space, in the beef industry space, is the labeling thing. And, we have these fake meat companies, plant-based companies, or lab grown meat companies that want to call their products sausage and hamburger and steak or whatever it might be. Obviously the dairy space has been experiencing that, but you guys were 15 years ago. It was a lot sooner that you saw the almond milk, oat milks, all these nut juices come onto the scene. How has that impacted the dairy industry today? And I guess, how are you guys dealing with that? Or is it just kind of what it is?
Yeah, we have lots of nut juices now, which are great if you're into that sort of thing. But I think the thing to know is it's not milk. It does not offer as much protein or nutrients or calcium as an 8-ounce glass of milk does. So it's like comparing apples and oranges. They're not the same thing. And I know there are people in the dairy industry fighting to have those products removed from the dairy case or called something else. As far as I know, I don't think there's anything official on it yet, but People are fighting for it. And yeah, I think it's probably affected fluid milk consumption a bit. There does seem to be a stigma that like adults don't need to drink milk and milk is bad and you should put oat milk in your smoothie instead. And it just boggles my mind because now I'm no fitness junkie, but I've worked with Dairy Girl Fitness before. I've worked with a trainer and I know how important protein is.
Right.
And so if you're making a smoothie, wouldn't you want a product that is going to put more protein in it?
Right.
You know, like why wouldn't you want to use real milk versus a nut juice that is basically flavored water?
Right. Yeah. And I always tell people they pay so much money for like protein shakes and bars and stuff. And it's like, well, this already naturally occurs in beef and dairy and eggs, and it's way more affordable and it tastes good too. You don't have to jazz it up to make it edible. And I think too, the misconception is that plants are better, but a lot of those nutrients aren't even as bioavailable and easily absorbed as what you can get from meat, dairy, and eggs. So it's, yeah, that's a hard thing. But I think, was it you that had a post comparing it, or was it Dairy Girl Fitness talking about the nutritional aspects of the nut juices compared to the real deal? Maybe that was Dairy Girl Fitness.
It could have been her. I know I shared it, I think, briefly in the past, but
yeah. And it's, and I always say too, as long as people have choice, that's awesome. But it's interesting because a lot of the nut juices don't even need to be refrigerated and they're right in the dairy aisle, next to the milks. And it's like, okay, got it. I sound sassy, but I see such a push to, even some of the major coffee houses across the country that were like, oh, we're not going to have dairy as an option. We're going to go all almond milk or whatever. And it's like, it's just such a shame because the attacks on nutrition and animal welfare and environment couldn't be further from the truth. And maybe that's a good place to spend, our last 5 minutes is talking about the environmental impacts and how you see your dairy cattle kind of fitting into the conversation, because there seems to be this push that the planet would be a lot healthier without cows at all. I guess, what would you say to that?
Yeah, I would say the cool thing about the dairy cow is they can consume and digest legumes and other, plants that we can't, and they can turn it into food that we can eat. So on non-tillable land, you can graze your cattle, or, we can feed our cattle certain things that humans can't eat, and it turns into milk and dairy products. And that's an amazing thing for the environment and for a growing hungry population.
Yep. I always say the cows have 4 stomachs, so they can go eat all that stuff I don't want to eat, and I'm going to enjoy the good stuff that they can provide us with. Yeah. So do you, I guess, I know the cow fart thing is such a huge thing. Do you get a lot of people asking you about emissions?
I don't get a lot of people asking me about it. I don't know if that's just my audience. I do talk about it once in a while because it is frustrating that people are blaming the cows, but yet we're flying these big jets back and forth for no reason. There's way bigger problems than cows.
Yeah. I always make the joke, like, if they were so bad, we'd have smog over our pastures because those cow farts are just out of control. But then we have these elite politicians that jet set across the world to go talk about climate change. It's like, well, you could have done that over Zoom and saved the emissions, and then you could have drank your glass of milk and been just fine. So again, I get a little sassy, but see, that's where you come in, because you do it so sweetly and kindly. And so what are you working on now? Any new exciting projects coming down the pike that people could watch for?
Yeah, well, I'm working on a YouTube channel. I'm a big food person too. I like to cook. So I'm working on some YouTubes that would maybe showcase a meal I make in my kitchen. We go do chores. We come back and finish the meal, because as a dairy mom, meal prep and making dinner time as easy and simple as possible in the evening is a must. And I know a lot of people can relate to that. So I think it'd be a fun way to connect over food and show a little more of our farm life through recipes. So I'm going to work on that. I'm hoping to I've got all sorts of ideas.
Yeah.
I want to build a little more community with my fellow farm women, fellow rural women, and kind of get together for a mastermind dinner. So
Cool.
I'm working on getting that set up. Because I just think, farm women, so many of us, I think, aspire to do things greater than what our small town may have to offer. And when you can connect with like-minded women like that, it's a lot of fun and inspiring and helps you be a better person.
Totally. Yeah. I think we push each other, and that's what I appreciate about you on this space is I think you push people to be better and be a voice. And yes, I do really appreciate your videos on recipes too. I think they're a big hit. And I've been doing that with the kids too. And it's the basic stuff like, what kind of beef to use? It's totally like square one sometimes. And you do feel silly, like, oh, everybody should know this, but they don't. So it's helpful. With 30 seconds left to go, any parting words or final thoughts?
I would just like to say thanks for letting me come on and chat with you today. It was a lot of fun. I hope if you are a fellow farmer listening that we've inspired you to share your story, because it takes everyone.
It does. It takes a bit. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Radke Report. I'm Amanda Radke, and I hope you guys enjoyed this interview with the Mod Farm Chick. If you'd like to see more content like this, please help me out by liking, commenting, and sharing this video, and be sure to click subscribe so you don't miss a single episode.